as well as those watching on sfgiants.com, sfgigantes.com, the Giants YouTube channel, NBC Sports Bay Area, and those listening on KNBR. Last week, the Giants officially announced that Tony Vitello has been named the 40th manager in Giants history. Tony, welcome to San Francisco.
Thank you.
It's a privilege to have you.
We'll take it.
It's a privilege to have you, your parents, Greg and Kathleen, your sisters, Christine, Kara, and Katie, your brother-in-law, Rich, your nieces and nephew, and other members of your family and friends here today. Also with us today on the dais is Giants President of Baseball Operations, Buster Posey, and Giants General Manager, Zach Manassian. I'd also like to recognize in attendance Giants Chairman, Greg Johnson, Giants President, Larry Baer, and members of the Giants front office that are here today. Also, we have the three Kuiper brothers I would like to acknowledge. Jeff, Dwayne, and Glenn are here today. Welcome, you guys. And now it's my pleasure to turn things over to Buster Posey.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. Today is a very exciting day for our organization as we welcome Tony as the new manager of the San Francisco Giants. You know, when we first started talking to Tony, it was abundantly clear that he was a natural leader. Wide range of topics, and I think some highlights that I came away with from those conversations were, some of his vision, his conciseness, and plenty of other leadership qualities. I think where it really took off for me is when you start making phone calls and you talk to so many different people that have come into contact with him for years and years and been in his world, and you start to hear some of the attributes. And conversely, Tony had a lot of conversations with people in our own organization, and the feedback was all the same. The response was, this guy's a winner. He has a vision to be great, and not just for himself, that's going to rub off on those around him. There's an expectation that he'll get the best from everybody that he comes into contact with. Tony's a teacher, he's a motivator, tireless worker, and someone who understands how to build culture. We believe his leadership is not only going to impact our clubhouse, but it's also going to impact our organization and our entire fan base as well. Thrilled to have Tony as our manager. High confidence that together we can build something really special here in San Francisco. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce Tony Vitello as the next manager of the San Francisco Giants.
I think we should. A little more comfortable.
Tony?
Yeah. Obviously, thank you to Buster, to Zach, to Greg Johnson, Larry, all the ownership, really all the organization, and I know players' feedback was important. That's kind of where my whole deal has started, is with players. Gavin Keelan, who some of you may know, was fortunate enough to be a first-round pick here, and that's where some of those conversations exist between the college level and the pro level. And obviously, something all those players are aspiring to do is make it to the big leagues. And as this process has gone on, it's been funny. I've gotten a lot of text messages about living out your dream, or somebody said, when you have baseball cards when you're little, which I still have some. I don't know if they're worth anything or not, but, did you dream, or you dreamed of being this? I never dreamed of being a Major League Baseball player. I don't know why. My skill level wasn't very high. I think it was just so far above the clouds that I never even saw it. And for me as a coach, I was just kind of trying to make my way. I got thrust into a position at a young age that I probably didn't even deserve. So I was just trying to do a good job. And fortunately, it helped get me to the next spot and the next spot and the next spot. And eventually this did become a dream, where I just kind of decided if it was, if I was blessed enough to receive an opportunity, this is something I wanted to do before I was done coaching, in general. And now I'm incredibly humbled and blessed to do so. So it is a dream come true, but it's a very recent dream. It wasn't one I had for a while. And as much as I'd love to sit up here and promise things and pound my fist on the desk and all that, and really all I want to do is a good job. And I think because of being around my dad and being blessed around winning players similar to Buster, those standards are very high. And I have spent some, I know it'll be a question later, I have spent some time around this organization, either as a fan or just watching or again through business ways. I'm fully aware of the tradition that's here and the excellence that's been brought by managers like Bochy, Dusty Baker, the toughness from guys like Baumgartner and Romo, the loyalty, which is incredibly important, word to me and my family, which is epitomized by the guy to my right, and the records that have been set by guys like Bonds and Mays and Linscomb and everybody else. And then, the one thing that always got to me was the family, the sense of family that was a part of this organization. And one of the players I coached came up during Hunter Pence's playing days and just talked about how good that guy was to everybody in the organization, especially younger aspiring players and rookies. So there's a lot to learn from the past, and there is very high expectations, very high standards to meet because of the past. And this is a challenge that's been presented to me, and again, I'm humbled and honored to be here in front of you today to take on that challenge.
Okay, thanks, Tony. With that, we will open it up to questions for the media. I just ask if you have a question, please state your name and affiliation. Let's go right here to John Shea.
Hello, Tony. Welcome to the Bay.
Thank you.
Now, you've coached college. You haven't played, coached, or managed in the big leagues. 56 games versus 162 plus spring training and whatever happens in October. But Buster and Tony, have you talked about how different this will be in terms, we've seen how emotional and passionate you are at the college level. Can you transfer that to this 162 game grind, or will you have to tone it down a little bit? What's the conversation between you two on that front?
I think if you ask my mom, she'd want me to tone it down, but if you ask my dad, he'd say kick it up a notch, I think it is completely different. There's obviously, we didn't waste any time. We got to the first question that everybody was maybe thinking and should ask, and it is very different. So I think the one thing about each game unto itself, whether it's high school, college, or pro, is it's kind of got its own personality, its own flavor. And you have to adapt to that particular day, especially in our sport. I mean, the one common theme that I always, when I first started coaching that I didn't like is when you win, you lose, 9-6, it's the pitching let us down. And then when you lose 3-2, it's, pitchers did their job, but the hitters didn't hit. You win and lose as a team, and every game, for whatever reason, kind of has its own vibe to it. And I feel every day is like that too. And whether it's 162, 56, or whatever, baseball is a sport that is built on sample size, and you have to be willing to separate each one as a mutually exclusive one and attack it for what it is at that particular time. So I wish I had an answer in my own head, to be honest with you, because as I first got here, I was like, man, there are a lot of unknowns and just a lot of wonder in my mind. And of course, you can ask people and draw on previous information, but until you live it out, you don't know what it's going to be like.
Sorry, Matt. John Shea, San Francisco Standard. Sorry about that. And just one more. Buster, when Gabe Kapler was here, it seems like there was a massive collaboration on how the in-game game planning and strategizing was going to come down, whether it's the bullpen moves or the lineups or anything like that. maybe not so much with Bob Melvin. What's it going to be like now? How much will the front office be involved in the analytics department and scouting and everything else with the game-to-game, with the day-to-day planning, including in-game strategizing?
I mean, I think it remains to be seen. And some of it will just evolve naturally as as we spend more time around each other and the staff is built out. You know, the way I look at our role is we're evaluating so many different departments across the organization. But as much as anything, the way I see us is a support system to get Tony and his staff information. We can be a sounding board. We can be think partners as well. As Tony mentioned, you know, from my experience, any great team that I've been a part of, people are pulling in the same direction, and that's the hope and the expectation here is, you know, we're all going to be working together. Does that mean that we're going to have perfect harmony all the time? No, I mean, it doesn't. But there's going to be things that we all continue to learn and grow together as we go through this.
Over here on the right, Mark.
Hey, Tony. Mark Willard, 95.7 The Game. Just kind of building on your previous answer, kind of person to person, I wonder if you have any concerns with the idea of kind of the energy that you would use for a college player. Like, does that work for someone who might be in their 30s and has, you know, kids at home? Like, do you have to, from that level, kind of adjust your style, or how will you go about kind of addressing that?
Yeah, I think one thing we did well at the places I've been, in particular Tennessee, was coach guys as individuals. You know, I've always used the example in recruiting. You turn on a TV and watch a big league game, whether it's last night or, you know, you're watching the Giants play the Padres. You're going to see 9 different stances, 4 or 5 different deliveries and things like that. So it's not an exact parallel, but just kind of use an example of it's got to be individualistic. I mean, some of these guys are, you know, guys that I've recruited, and, you know, I don't know what the punishment running is, but Bryce said no to Tennessee when I was there, so we'll have a separate conversation. But no, he's a great kid, but he's, to be honest with you, he's exactly what I just got done doing a week ago. And then you know, climb the ladder and you get to a guy like Justin Verlander or a Max Scherzer or somebody like that. I think those conversations are completely different. So it's an easy answer to say it's individualistic because it's kind of vague, but that's truly what it is. And then falling back on my other answer, I do think you got to come to the office and vibe it out. I think some of those conversations are a lot easier when things are going good, and when they're not, you know, Buster just kind of got done commenting on, we'll all work together. The whole goal is to create a bond here between everybody at the top all the way down to whatever you consider, you know, the bottom of the depth chart, and all have a bond strong enough that when Alex Gordon hits a triple, everybody's still on the same page and willing to get through that moment and come out victorious. I was at that game, by the way, behind home plate. It was rather intense. Correct?
Yeah, I'll second that. It was.
Let's go right here to the right.
Hi, Tony. Justice De Los Santos, San Jose Mercury News. Question for Buster as well as Zach. When did the idea of first considering Tony come to mind? And following that first consideration, how did the process of wanting to interview him and get to know him more, how did that process evolve? And kind of for Zach as well, like what were your first questions?
Yeah, well, I'll start because I'll give Zach credit. He was the one who first had the thought. I think that's credit, right? Yeah. But no, it's so I don't remember the exact time, but you know, once the season was over, you know, started having conversations, pretty casual to start with. A unique thing about this process was, and it's one thing that I've come to really appreciate about Tony, and honestly made me feel more confident in this decision, is this guy he was hard to get a hold of because he was on the field all the time, or he was bouncing from city to city recruiting. And just because this was on his plate, he was still full go with what his job was at Tennessee. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. I wish it was easier to get in contact with you during those times sometimes. But it's, so yeah, that's a little bit of how it played out. Zach, you feel free to add on to that.
Yeah, I would just say, as much as this feels out of the box, Tony's name has been bouncing around Major League Baseball for a while. Fortunate to sit in the draft room, and Tennessee's program has been top notch, which means there's a lot of good players that we're talking about year in and year out. I've been fortunate to go watch them, and I think just the nature of this job is you're always evaluating everything. Not necessarily sitting here 3 years ago watching Tennessee play and Gilbert in center field and Dolander pitching saying, one day we're going to hire Tony as a manager, but you get a sense of how he goes about it, his passion, his intellect, his care. I mean, he talks a lot about family, and those are things that we talk about. But I think starting the process, you really want to try and build as big a list as you can. There's a lot of talented people out there. And as we started to go through it, I felt like we kept coming back to this one would be really interesting, and it just got even more and more interesting as we continued to speak.
Let's go, Brian.
Hi, Tony. Brian Murphy from KMBR. We're the Giants flagship. We carry all the stations. Welcome to San Francisco.
Thank you.
So baseball, this is the hard question. Baseball's a dues-paying culture. They say if you didn't ride the bus in the minors, you can't get to the show. So you haven't. So I'm wondering, have you reached out to those veterans, the Willie Adameses, the Matt Chapmans, the Rafi Devers, to suss them out and earn their credibility or respect?
More just touching base, and pretty cool that some of those guys beat me to the punch and reached out to me first, but just some casual going back and forth. And I think we all want the same thing. It's to win. And, that's where the conversations have started to this point. I think it's, normally it's recruiting in college. You're going to see people face to face. I think it's good that there's some time between now and spring training for me to maybe go out, and wouldn't be able to do it with the whole roster, but do spend some time face to face with those guys, and earn their trust or their respect in a different way. Because I can't go back in time and be a switch hitter or be a catcher or anything like that. So, but I am very sensitive, with all due respect, to the phrase "pay your dues," because like the other coaches in our league and across the country, Yesavich is, Cliff Godwin is the coach at East Carolina. He reached out last night because Max and Yesavich are embracing. It's a lot of lonely nights in a hotel, and it's a lot of phone calls, and it's a lot of text messages. It's hearing no just as much as maybe an insurance salesman or whoever else, or maybe a reporter looking for an interview that hears a no. So dues have come in a different way, and hopefully respect will be earned, in different ways. And the only way I know how to do that is through hard work.
Let's go to the left, Maria.
Hi, Tony. Maria
Hey.
Guardado, MLB.com. It seems like you really kind of agonized over the decision to leave Tennessee. Just what ultimately convinced you to take this opportunity with the Giants?
Yeah, thanks for revisiting that. Relationships is kind of, I don't have a bread and butter. And to be honest with you, just mention work ethic. On the field, I joke. I mean, I had decent skills, and I don't know that I have many skills to offer in baseball. And sorry if that lowers expectations around here. I think for whatever reason, I clicked on pitching a little bit when scouting. Maybe a few guys maybe hit the nail on the head there, but I've just tried to work hard. And I think no matter what field it is, probably everyone here knows from the media, it's not easy. It's hard work. You all have a job to do too. And the harder you work, the more you have success, and the more you also figure out what doesn't work, and trial and error and things like that. So that's a long lead into a lot of relationships, and a lot of work were put into that. It's a phenomenal place to live, work. Like here, the one similarity I saw is the fan base is arguably the best in the country for who they are. And you end up creating a bond if you do put in the work with those people, where there's a reciprocation. For everything you give to them, you get back. I don't know what number you want to attach to it, but you get back. And then I started my rambling at the beginning by talking about players. I owe everything to the coaches that have given me opportunities, like Tim Jameson, who I played for, and he gave me my first coaching job, but more to the players that have competed the way they have when I've been fortunate enough to be in the dugout. And then you get some credit. And those relationships are tough. And no one wants to see that team go to Omaha more than me that's in Tennessee. But I'll tell you whose wins I'd enjoy more than Tennessee's: San Francisco Giants.
Let's go, Janie.
Hi, Tony. Janie McCauley from Associated Press. You referenced your mom might want you to take things down a notch, and your dad would say, let's ratchet it up here. What do you want people to know about your style, and maybe the mix of both your parents that you have, and maybe how they've influenced how you do your job?
Yeah, my mom's Irish, so you probably picked up on there were days where you're a little teary-eyed about in different ways, excitement about opportunity and relationships and things like that, and then just overall a bunch of emotions that come about when you tie in the whole story. My dad's Italian and he's a great cook, but he was the ultimate competitor and he hated to lose. And I think a lot of the things that have come out about the teams I've been a part of or our coaching staff are just that. It was a group that hated to lose and just wanted to do everything we could to put ourselves in a position to win. It doesn't always work out that way. When you show up to a competition, as long as it doesn't rain, there's two outcomes that can occur, win or loss. And that's something that every competitor, when you step into the arena, has to realize. So some of the moments, I guess, that I'll branch off of that is Twitter is not life. And I know I don't have an account. I asked before even taking the job, I don't have to get a Twitter, right? And they said no. I realize it's a part of the job. There's great information. There's great entertainment. But one thing that I think is very beneficial to people is to know that Twitter is not life. So you pull a 3-second clip and you see Drew Gilbert doing something in college, you think he's a maniac and maybe a maniac off the field, and you don't get the full scope of the kid is literally a sweetheart, off the field. But yeah, he's very competitive on the field. So that's just the one thing I'd say. And I had to live it out. I didn't look at a lot of the stuff, but I can tell when people say, I'm sure there's negative stuff. There's always doubters, and why would you do this? But the amount of positive feedback I've gotten from, I was joking about recruiting, from kids that I didn't even coach, I just recruited them, or opponents in college baseball, or other people in big league baseball, these other managers that are either retired or still coaching, reaching out to me, has blown me away. And positivity's got a lot of power.
Let's go to the right. Shayna.
Hi, Tony. Welcome. Shayna Rubin with the San Francisco Chronicle. There's a lot that's been said about the difference between college and the pros and the learning curve there, but what are some of the elements of college baseball that you think the big leagues would benefit from that you want to bring?
I think there's a trade back and forth off the cuff. I don't want to say the wrong one. I'm around big league guys up here. But I think in college, it's so important to build relationships with these kids because they're at a vulnerable part in their life where they're so impressionable, and they need to be able to come forward to you with, things that maybe don't even relate to baseball. In all walks of life, any kind of business, and we're in, one of the most innovative and aggressive areas of business in the world, really. So whether it's that or with baseball, relationships are so important. And so I'm sure that's being done at this level. I just think it's a different perspective that either I can bring or other coaches can bring. And, I'll also say this, you look at guys like Christian Moore, who are almost immediately in the big leagues, and obviously Paul Skeens is having success and things like that. I think the two are kind of melting together. And trust me, the college base, I wouldn't vote myself to be the pioneer of college baseball, but I think one thing that can come out of this is be one step further of the two, again, kind of melting together, and MLB supporting college baseball and doing things for it, and college baseball interacting with MLB and seeing how, those two things can kind of, call it melt or bridge together, I think could be very, very beneficial to the game, especially since some of the minor league teams have been taken away, and also especially since college baseball has risen in popularity so much. There is real star power, and the fan following has kind of matched that. And some of those guys are, in the big leagues 2 months after they get drafted.
Stay on the right. Scott?
Yes, Scott Osler, San Francisco Chronicle. Going back to the question that Justice asked a few minutes ago, how this all started. This is, I guess, for all three of you, but can you give us a little more detail on it seems unusual that Buster Posey could call a college coach and just say, hey, have you ever thought about being a manager? I mean, how'd that first call go, that very first contact?
Well, I think, Scott, one of my most important responsibilities in this role is to be able to read a room and read people. I don't always get it right, but I feel like I have a pretty good sense of that. So, you know, there's a perception, I think, when you have somebody who you can watch even before you make a phone call of what they may be about and what their personality might be like. And it doesn't always perfectly match up, but you do have a good idea going into it. So I don't feel like I was going into it blindly, not having an idea of who I was calling. And then, yeah, just as I mentioned to Justice, you know, it just kind of over time, more conversations, Tony having conversations with people in the organization, you know, talking more baseball, talking vision, leadership, all the attributes that go into making a good leader. He checked all those boxes. And, you know, there's, again, like, I think with any hire you make, there's going to be a certain level of risk. It doesn't matter who it is. I mean, I would say that's for anybody. But again, my responsibility, Zach's responsibility, and the rest of the front office is to be able to read people and have a good, I guess I'll use a front office word, projection of who they may be.
Stay on the right. Evan?
Hi, Tony. Evan Webeck with the San Jose Mercury News. You said after you took this job that you consider yourself a Vol for life and you hope to return to Tennessee one day. How do you expect to go about embracing not just the Giants, but San Francisco and the Bay Area and the culture here in the same way?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to experience it before. I mean, we've had conversations, so it's all blending together for me. But I played and coached in Salinas, and you know, came to several games here. Bill Miller, a former player that I don't know, you might be too young. Do you remember Bill Miller?
I know Bill Miller.
Yeah, pretty good teams he was a part of, and a pretty good dude there. And he took good care of me, so I was able to see this environment myself. My former college roommate is here, Ryan Pickett. He's one of several people that are from this area and are Giants fans that I'm friends with. So like Tennessee, where you referenced, when that job first became available, I was busy with you know, what I was trying to do at another program at Arkansas. And, you know, I was like, well, it's not who you know, or I'm sorry, it's not who you are, but who you know. And I was like, I don't know anybody at Tennessee. Well, it kind of turned out I did. There was like 7, 8 little connections, and it's been interesting how this has come to be. Obviously, there's some players in the organization I'm familiar with, but just a lot of random connections. And again, 2 summers that were very special to me that I spent in Salinas, California, not too far from here, where I was educated on the Giant fan base and the organization itself, and also just the people in general, and how great of an area this is, you know?
Can you tell us just a little bit more about your time in Salinas and the impressions that you came away from, I guess, Northern California with?
Yeah, I was in good hands. Deborah Cole is was my host mom those 2 summers, and people make a place, you know, and the park was fun to go to, and we had a good group of players, and the fans, you know, not quite as big of a crowd as here, were abundant, but it was the people there that just made you feel welcome. And being from the Midwest, you've got different stereotypes throughout the country on what the vibe is like where you're from. And in the Midwest, home and family and kind of feeling welcoming is very, very important. And that was very evident from day one, in part, again, who I was staying with and who I was surrounded by, but just in general. And it's different up here. It just is. Abnormal may sound like you're saying weird or in a bad way, but very abnormal the last couple days since I've been here. The attention to detail, the people at the hotel that have either been tipped off or maybe already, I'm like, how much did you give these guys but you know, it's not random, it's not coincidental, it's culture. And again, that's also a vague word and one that's overused a lot, but it's abnormal here. And I think it's probably fed into the success of the organization, which has also been abnormal.
Let's go to the back left. Tim?
Yeah, Tim Kawakami, San Francisco Standard. I don't think I've introduced myself to Buster, but to Buster, obviously Tony's not lacking in energy and personality. I know maybe it wasn't the single thing you were looking for, but were those factors, like either you identified, hey, I'm meeting this guy, this is what we need, or did you have that kind of circled when the search began? You'd like some energy, you'd like some personality in that clubhouse?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it would be fair to say that that was like the overriding factor that I was looking for. I was looking for somebody that I felt like shared a similar vision, had similar ideals. You've heard him talk about people over and over again up here. To me, that's your secret sauce in everything. It's the relationships you build. And so for me, it was finding somebody that I think we matched up in a lot of those ways, and that we could grow together. You know, the hope is that this is a relationship that lasts a really long time.
And you did mention vision and conciseness. I know you don't pick words randomly. I don't know if I'm referring to any question he's already answered, but can you tell us what do you mean by concise?
Yeah, I mean, so look, I think concise comes from my conversations with him over the last few weeks, and he's very direct in his thoughts, and there's not a lot of hemming and hawing. He has what he believes. Now, I will say that. I think that can be misconstrued to say that he's not going to be malleable. Certainly is not how I felt throughout this either. But I think it's a huge attribute to be able to take in information, and once you get that information, make a decision and stick with it. And you know, you should be able to back up why you were concise in that situation.
Sorry, some of my answers haven't been concise. A lot to share with you.
Stay on the left side. Kerry?
Hi, Tony. Kerry Crowley, San Francisco Standard. Have you made any hires for your coaching staff yet? Will you retain anyone? And what qualities do you generally look for when you try to hire people?
Yeah, I think at this point, it's get to this day and then push forward. That doesn't mean there haven't been a ton of conversations prior to, and it could be a variety of things. It could be, you know, keeping those that are on board and obviously know the players well already, bringing somebody in, covering blind spots, just complimenting one another. But my biggest thing is just for everybody to be on the same page. I think, you know, pulling on the same rope is a cliche for a reason. And we talked about how long the season is. So it's important to have a group of guys that are willing to be there through thick and thin. It literally is a marriage for the course of the season. So to me, it doesn't have to be the brightest, the best, the most experienced, or the best resume. It needs to be the guy that's going to have your back. And he's also going to have to take either the leap of faith or know that, you know, I or whoever else has their back. And then you kind of get this reciprocal thing we talked about with fan base. It's more important for it to go on with the coaching staff because the players can see it and they can feel it and they can hear it. And in order for them to do it, you all have to be doing it as a staff as well. And there is nothing more fun than when you got it going on with the staff and the players are doing that. And then there's the back and forth too. And, you know, sometimes it's after a loss, which is crazy for me to say up here, but there's a feeling. These guys have been a part of competitive sports. You can feel when it's like, if I'm going to come back, you know, and bounce back from this, I want to do it with this group, and I believe I can. And then, of course, nothing better than celebrating a win with the people that, you know, you truly want to be around and people that you know, again, you could count on to help you achieve something like that.
Let's go right here, right?
Hey, Tony, Jack Loader. I'm with KNBR. You're obviously a very competitive guy. How much did the current landscape of the National League West play into your decision, and how excited are you about the challenge of taking on rosters like the Dodgers and Padres?
Yeah, I think, you know, the bottom line is if you want to win the final game of the season, you're going to have to beat everybody or be better than everyone. Now, not everyone can be on your schedule, but just looked at it a little bit, in part following the division because of some of the players, you know. The Rockies have 3 guys that we recently coached, you know, and then some ties to San Diego with a friend of mine who used to manage there, and just watching in general. I got friends down in the LA area as well, so nothing too crazy there. I mean, no matter where you go, if you're striving to, you know, make progress, competition is going to be at a very, very high level, and got to be careful too about not getting caught up in what others are doing. You know, the most important people and the most important place is pretty much where we are right now. So, well, again, to me, what doing a good job is, which I said at the very beginning, centers around you focusing on what we got going on here and doing it as well as we can do it.
Okay, let's take 3 to 4 more. Let's go over here back to Maria.
Tony, you're obviously the son of a coach. Just how has your dad kind of influenced your outlook and your approach to coaching in general?
I think having principles or values that you want to stick to and have conviction to them. You know, I think one thing that's key for our players is to go out there and play with conviction. You know, each pitch of the year. Again, long season. That is so much easier said than done. But when you got a fan base, because we're in this together now, whether you like me or not, I've just seen it. It includes everybody. And unfortunately, when things get difficult or it doesn't go the way you're hoping, some people get further apart from the center of the group. But the best groups are, no matter how it's going, people seem to get closer as time goes by or reps pile up or maybe even difficulties or successes pile up. It just is a group that gets together. So whether it's media, fans, our players, everybody that I've met so many people, we're all in this together. And I've learned that from my dad. And, you know, being a part of, you know, not a part of him, but getting to sit on the bench when I was little and see all the different teams he coached, you kind of become well educated in, well, this isn't the right thing to do in this situation, or this is. And his teams had a knack for peaking towards the end of the season. And I think that's piling up lessons learned, but more importantly, falling back on that concept of as things get going, you know, difficult or longer or harder, then everybody gets closer together.
Okay, to the right here, Michael.
Yeah, Mike Wilson, Knoxville News Sentinel. This is for Zach and Buster. Zach, earlier you said that this might feel really outside the box, but what are some of the things about Tony that maybe make this less outside the box than it might appear?
Well, I think him having this success that he's had at Tennessee has drawn a lot of attention to him from the professional side for quite some time. So like I said, when we sit in the draft room, there's a lot of conversation about what was going on at that university and what Tony in specific was doing with his players. And as you do that and you start to do research on players, ultimately you end up having conversations with staff from that school, other schools. We have a lot of great people who work in amateur scouting who think the world of Tony. And I think for me personally, not to speak for Buster, you start to get a little bit of a sense of who this person is and what those attributes are and how they could fit into professional baseball. And so when you start lining them up, there is some things that draw strong comparisons to people who have been really successful in the role right out here.
Okay, we're going to take 2 more. Let's go right here to Janie.
Tony, when you think about working for Buster and Zach, I mean, the fact that Buster is still fairly freshly removed from his playing career and all that he did in this game, I mean, how much comfort is there? And can you believe that this guy played all 9 positions in one game his junior year at Florida State? And do you remember that and some of all the things that he did here?
I do remember it. We're both former shortstops. Our careers went a little different at one point, but if I was picking up on what you're saying, I think maybe we should talk him out of retirement. You said he's not that far removed. He's kind of moving around all right earlier today. But no, I think a big X factor in this whole thing was being around somebody like him. And, you know, to leave where I was at was not easy. We kind of touched on that already. It had to be a certain set of circumstances that would even be considered. And ultimately what this was about, just to some personal introspective of 2 words that I had to diagnose are risk and challenge, and they both are kind of the same thing. But if you talk about risk, you know, it kind of sounds like you could lose it all if it doesn't go well. But to me, this was more about a challenge. And no matter how each day goes, and again, to beat up the theme, I'm very well aware there's a higher sample size, so therefore more days. Regardless of how it goes, are you willing to meet the challenge? And what a challenge is something that you find out what you can and can't do. And that's something that we've preached to our players all the time at Tennessee. So who am I to preach that, but to not do it? Now, when you head into a challenge, you want a level of confidence. And again, there's so many unknowns. I can't tell you what that level is for me, but the level of the people surrounding me here, whether it's the roster, which is pretty good, or the other people in the organization, and in particular, again, the guy sitting to the right of me, the confidence is through the roof.
Okay, last one, back left. Andy.
Hi, Tony. Andy Baggerly with The Athletic. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
You know, one sort of cohort of players you haven't had experience really interfacing with are Latin American players, which make up a huge part of Major League rosters. Do you have thoughts about just how you're going to go about connecting with those players, and do you have to have resources on your staff to help you with that?
Yeah, I think who makes up the staff is really key. And then I think also just making an effort, which involves work ethic, to meet that challenge in particular head on. Because again, regardless of people's backgrounds, when you're in a work environment, you need to get to know who people are, and you need to build relationships. And you also want to build a trust level there that they're willing to come to you with certain things. And then, as you all have become familiar with, there's a lot of key decisions that happen over the course of a game. So there's got to be that trust level too, whether it's me making the final call or it's a staff decision to do something, that individual's got to trust us. So to have any barriers or obstacles that are in the middle of that trust is not a good thing, and it's something that's got to be approached and attacked from day one. And again, that's probably something in the off season that will be earmarked by not just myself, but everybody to kind of meet that challenge in particular head on.
Okay, with that concludes today's press conference. Thanks again, everyone, for coming out. And Tony, congrats again.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, my son, he gave up his bed for